The bitter taste of crushed bitter cola still lingered on Adunni's tongue as she crept through the darkness toward the nursery. In her trembling hands, she clutched a small calabash filled with a concoction that would ensure Folake's newborn son would never see his first birthday. "Ayami, forgive me," she whispered to the ancestors as she pushed open the door to where 3-week-old Ayomide slept peacefully in his wooden cot. The compound in Suralere, Lagos, was silent except for the distant hum of generators and the occasional call of night traders. Adunni had waited for this moment, when Folake would be deep in the exhausted sleep of new motherhood, when Chief Adebayo would be snoring in his master bedroom, and when the house help would be lost in dreams on her mat in the boys' quarters. As Adunni approached the sleeping infant, her heart pounded like talking drums at an Egungun festival. The moonlight streaming through the window illuminated the baby's perfect features that reminded everyone of his father's striking looks, the same features that had made Folake the favored wife. "You are the reason she took my place," Adunni whispered bitterly to the innocent child. "Before you came, I was Ayawo Agba, the senior wife. Now look at me, reduced to nothing while your mother parades around like the queen of this house." She uncorked the calabash, and the acrid smell made her stomach turn. The Babalawo had warned her that this medicine was powerful, too powerful. But jealousy had eaten away at her soul like termites destroying a wooden beam. For months, she had watched Folake's belly grow round with promise while her own remained flat despite years of trying. She had endured the sympathetic looks from market women, the whispered conversations that stopped when she entered the room, and worst of all, the way Chief Adebayo's eyes now followed Folake with the same adoration he once reserved for her. Just as she lifted the calabash to the baby's lips, a voice cut through the darkness like a sharp cutlass. "What are you doing to my child?" Adunni spun around to find Folake standing in the doorway, her wrapper hastily tied around her waist, her eyes blazing with a mother's fury. The calabash slipped from Adunni's hands, crashing to the concrete floor and spilling its deadly contents. "Folake," Adunni stammered, but there were no words that could explain away what she had been caught doing. "You wicked woman!" Folake screamed, lunging forward to snatch her baby from the cot. "You tried to poison my son. Chief Adebayo! Chief Adebayo, come quickly!" The entire compound erupted into chaos. Lights flickered on in every room. Feet pounded on the terrazzo floors. Within minutes, Chief Adebayo burst into the nursery wearing only his singlet and boxers, followed by the house help, the gatemen, and neighbors who had heard the commotion. "What is happening here?" Chief Adebayo demanded, his deep voice carrying the authority that had made him successful in the construction business. Folake, clutching baby Ayomide protectively against her chest, pointed a shaking finger at Adunni. "Your senior wife tried to kill our son. I caught her trying to force some poisonous medicine down his throat." All eyes turned to Adunni, who stood frozen like a thief caught red-handed at Alaba Market. The evidence was there on the floor, the broken calabash, the dark liquid spreading across the cement, the guilty expression written across her face like chalk on a blackboard. "Adunni," Chief Adebayo said slowly, his voice heavy with disbelief and growing rage. "Tell me this is not true. Tell me you did not attempt to harm this innocent child." But Adunni could not lie. The shame burned in her chest like pepper soup on an empty stomach. She had been caught in an act so heinous that even she could hardly believe she had contemplated it. "She is jealous," Folake continued, tears streaming down her cheeks. "Ever since Ayomide was born, she has been acting strange. Now I know why. She wants to destroy my happiness because she cannot have her own children." The words hit Adunni like physical blows. Her own barrenness, her deepest shame, was now exposed before everyone in the compound. The neighbors would carry this story to every corner of Suralere before the sun rose. Chief Adebayo's face transformed from confusion to pure rage. "Adunni, you have brought shame upon this family. You have violated the most sacred bond, you tried to harm a helpless child under my own roof. Please, my husband," Adunni finally found her voice, dropping to her knees on the cold floor. "I was not thinking clearly. The devil possessed my mind. I beg you, forgive me. But forgiveness was not in Chief Adebayo's heart at that moment. The man who had built his reputation on fairness and honor felt that reputation crumbling like a mud house in the rainy season. Pack your things, he commanded, his voice cold as harmattan wind. You will leave this house at first light. I never want to see your face again. As the crowd began to disperse, whispering among themselves about the shocking events they had witnessed, Folake remained in the nursery, rocking her son gently and singing a lullaby. But her eyes never left Adunni, who still knelt on the floor surrounded by the evidence of her evil intentions. The damage was done, but both women knew this was only the beginning of a war that would consume their lives and test the very foundations of their polygamous family. The harmattan wind carried whispers through Soralia like wildfire, and by afternoon prayers, every woman in the neighborhood knew about the scandal at Chief Adebayo's compound. Adunni sat on her suitcase beside the compound gate, her pride as scattered as dry leaves, waiting for her brother Connor to collect her. Inside the main house, Folake paced the sitting room, baby Ayomide sleeping peacefully against her chest. The shock of the previous night had settled into a cold, hard anger that burned in her belly like bitter medicine. Mama Folake, you must eat something, urged Aya Agba, the elderly woman who helped with cooking and had witnessed the entire drama. She placed a bowl of steaming pounded yam and egusi soup on the center table. That woman's evil intentions cannot harm you if you remain strong. But Folake's appetite had vanished like morning dew. Aya Agba, how long has she been planning this? Was I blind to the signs? What if I had not heard her moving around last night? The older woman clicked her tongue sympathetically. The heart of a jealous woman is deeper than the ocean, my daughter. Do not blame yourself for another person's wickedness. From his study, Chief Adebayo's voice carried as he spoke angrily into his phone. Brother Tond, I have made my decision. Adunni must leave this house today. What she attempted, it is unforgivable. Folake could hear Adunni's family on the other end, pleading for mercy, making excuses, suggesting that perhaps she had been suffering from some temporary madness. But Chief Adebayo's mind was made up. There is no excuse for trying to poison an innocent child, he said firmly. If I keep her in this house, what message am I sending to the community? That I condone the attempted murder of my own son. Through the window, Folake watched as neighbors gathered near their fence, pretending to sweep their compounds while stealing glances at the disgraced woman sitting with her belongings. Mrs. Adeyemi from 3 houses down actually had the boldness to walk past the gate twice, hoping to catch more details of the scandal. The shame will follow our family name, Folake Mama to Aya Agba. People will always remember this story. They will look at Ayomide and think of how his own stepmother tried to kill him. Nonsense. Aya Agba declared, her voice sharp as a new cutlass. This child is blessed. See how God protected him. The ancestors were watching over him. No weapon formed against him shall prosper. A loud wailing from outside drew their attention. Adunni's sister-in-law, Mama Kemi, had arrived and was now engaging in the kind of dramatic display that would provide entertainment for the entire street. Chief Adebayo, please have mercy. Mama Kemi cried, throwing herself at the gate. Adunni is like my own sister. She was not in her right mind. The pressure of childlessness has driven her to temporary madness. Chief Adebayo emerged from the house, his face set in stone. He wore his best agbada, the one reserved for important meetings, because he knew this confrontation would be remembered and discussed for months. Mama Kemi, take your sister-in-law and go. My decision is final. What kind of man would I be if I allowed someone who tried to harm my child to remain under my roof? But she has been part of this family for 8 years. Mama Kemi continued her wailing. Where will she go? How will she survive? You are destroying her life over a moment of madness. Folake found herself moving toward the door, still clutching Ayomide. Despite everything, she felt a strange mixture of pity and disgust for her co-wife. Adunni looked smaller somehow, diminished by the weight of her shame. "Chief," Folake called out, her voice carrying clearly across the compound. "Let me speak with her before she leaves." The crowd fell silent. This was unexpected, the victim wanting to address her attacker. Adunni looked up with red, swollen eyes as Folake approached. The two women stared at each other for a long moment, 8 years of shared space, shared husband, and shared tensions hanging between them like a heavy curtain. "Why?" Folake asked simply. "Why did you try to hurt an innocent baby?" Adunni's voice cracked like old wood. "You took everything from me, Folake. His love, his attention, his pride. When Ayomide was born, I became invisible in my own home. I was no longer a wife, I was just furniture. So you thought killing my child would bring back his love." Folake's voice remained steady, but her grip on the baby tightened. "You thought murdering an innocent baby would solve your problems." "I was not thinking," Adunni whispered. "The jealousy ate my sense like termites. I am not proud of what I almost did." Folake stared at the woman who had shared her husband's bed, who had eaten from the same pot, who had been like a sister during the early years of their marriage. Now she looked at a stranger, someone capable of infanticide. "The marriage is finished for you, Adunni. But I want you to know something." Folake's voice carried clearly for all to hear. "You destroyed yourself. I never tried to compete with you or push you out. Your jealousy and wickedness brought this shame upon your head." A black Honda Accord pulled up to the gate. Connor had finally arrived to collect his sister. As Adunni stood to gather her belongings, she looked back at the compound that had been her home, at the husband who no longer claimed her, at the co-wife who had given him what she could not. "This is not over," she said quietly, her words meant only for Folake's ears. "You think you have won, but every victory has a price. I will make sure you pay for your happiness." The threats hung in the air like smoke from burning rubber as Adunni walked toward her brother's car, carrying nothing but shame and a heart full of revenge. 3 months later, the Lagos traffic was particularly brutal as Folake navigated her way to St. Agnes Catholic Church in Mushin for baby Ayomide's christening. She had chosen this church specifically because it was far from Sorale, hoping to avoid any drama that might arise from Adunni's extended family. The church was beautifully decorated with white and gold fabric, and the sweet scent of baby powder mixed with expensive perfumes filled the air. Folake wore her finest Ankara wrapper, the blue and gold design complementing the white lace blouse she had specially tailored for this occasion. Baby Ayomide, now 4 months old and growing beautifully, wore a pristine white christening gown that had cost more than some people's monthly salary. Chief Adebayo stood proudly beside his wife, greeting well-wishers and accepting congratulations with the bearing of a man whose lineage would continue. His friends from the construction association had come in force, their wives adding to the colorful display of expensive fabrics and elaborate girly head ties. "Oh, Chief," called out Alhaji Mustafa, his longtime business partner. "See how the boy resembles you. He will grow up to be a fine man." As the ceremony proceeded, Folake felt a deep sense of satisfaction. This was what she had prayed for during all those years of watching Adunni parade around as the senior wife. Now she had given Chief Adebayo his first son, and her position in the family was secure. But as they gathered for photographs outside the church, Folake noticed a familiar figure lurking near the fence. Her blood ran cold as she recognized the shabby wrapper and the malicious eyes that had haunted her nightmares. Adunni. She had lost significant weight, her once round face now gaunt and drawn. Her clothes were clean but obviously old, and her hair was tied with a simple scarf instead of the elaborate wigs she used to favor. But most disturbing was the smile on her face, not the bitter grimace of defeat, but something cold and calculating. "Mama Ayomide, what is wrong?" asked Mrs. Bolarinwa, Chief Adebayo's sister, noticing Folake's sudden tension. "Nothing," Folake lied, forcing herself to smile for the photographer while keeping one eye on the fence. The photographer, a young man with expensive equipment, was positioning the family for the final group shot when a commotion broke out near the church entrance. A woman was arguing loudly with the security guard, claiming she had every right to attend the christening. "That is my husband's child," the woman declared, her voice carrying across the church compound. "I have been married to Chief Adebayo for 8 years. You cannot stop me from witnessing my stepson's christening." Every head turned toward the disturbance. Folake's worst fears were confirmed as Adunni pushed past the security guard and marched toward the gathering, her chin raised with defiant dignity despite her obvious poverty. The guests began to whisper among themselves. This was better than a Nollywood drama playing out before their eyes. Chief Adebayo's face darkened like thunderclouds during the rainy season. "Security," he called out. "Remove this woman from the premises immediately." But Adunni was not easily deterred. "Brothers and sisters," she addressed the crowd directly, "I am Chief Adebayo's first wife. This woman," she pointed dramatically at Folake, "conspired to push me out of my own home so she could have my husband to herself." The gasps from the crowd were audible. This was not the story they had heard. According to the rumors that had circulated, Adunni had been sent away for attempted infanticide. Now she was painting herself as the victim of some elaborate scheme. "She lies." Folake found her voice, stepping forward with baby Ayomide still in her arms. "Tell them the truth, Adunni. Tell them why you were really sent away." "The truth." Adunni laughed bitterly. "The truth is that I was set up. That night when they claimed I tried to poison the baby, it was all planned. Folake arranged everything to make me look guilty so she could become the only wife." The crowd was eating up every word. Phones were already out, recording the drama that would be shared across WhatsApp groups before sunset. Father Michael, the Irish priest who had performed the christening, looked completely bewildered by the African family drama unfolding in his peaceful church compound. Chief Adebayo had had enough. "Adunni, you have brought enough shame on this family. I saw with my own eyes what you tried to do to this innocent child. Do not add the sin of lying to your already heavy burden. You saw what she wanted you to see." Adunni insisted. "Ask yourself this, how convenient that she happened to wake up at just the right moment to catch me. How convenient that I was caught red-handed with evidence that could have been planted." Folake felt a chill run down her spine. Even though she knew the truth, Adunni's words were creating doubt in the minds of some observers. The woman had clearly spent her months in exile planning this moment, crafting a narrative that would cast her as the wrong party. "Enough!" Chief Adebayo roared. "Security, escort this woman away from here before I call the police." As security guards moved toward Adunni, she played her final card. From her handbag, she produced a stack of photographs and began throwing them into the crowd. "Look at these pictures," she shouted. "Look and see the truth about your perfect Folake." The guests scrambled to pick up the photographs, their curiosity overcoming their good breeding. Folake's heart stopped as she realized what Adunni had done. The pictures showed Folake in intimate conversation with a man at a restaurant, not just any man, but Dr. Keod, Chief Adebayo's younger brother who worked as a cardiologist at Lagos University Teaching Hospital. "Your faithful wife has been meeting secretly with your own brother," Adunni announced triumphantly. "While you were working hard to provide for your family, she was carrying on an affair right under your nose." The photographs scattered across the church compound like autumn leaves, and with each image that landed in eager hands, Folake felt pieces of her world crumbling. The whisper started immediately, sharp, cutting sounds that sliced through the afternoon air like broken glass. Chief Adebayo stood frozen, his face cycling through confusion, disbelief, and a growing rage that made the veins in his forehead pulse visibly. He snatched one of the photographs from a guest's hands, studying the image of his wife and brother sitting close together at what appeared to be an intimate dinner. "Folake," his voice was dangerously quiet, "explain this to me. Now." Baby Ayomide began to cry, sensing the tension that surrounded him like a toxic cloud. Folake bounced him gently while her mind raced. The pictures were real, she could not deny that. But they told only half the story, and she knew that in this moment, context might not matter. My husband, she began, her voice steady despite the chaos in her heart. Those meetings were not what they appear to be. Not what they appear to be. Adunni cackled from where she stood, now triumphant despite the security guards flanking her. Then why were they secret? Why did you never mention dining with your brother-in-law to your husband? The crowd pressed closer, drawn like metal to a magnet by the drama unfolding before them. Father Michael was frantically trying to shepherd some of the guests back toward the church, but most were too invested in the scandal to move. Dr. Keod suddenly appeared at the edge of the crowd, having been called by someone who had witnessed the confrontation. His face went pale as he saw the photographs being passed around like trading cards. "Brother," he called out to Chief Adebayo, "let me explain." "Explain what?" Chief Adebayo's voice cracked like a whip. "Explain why you were secretly meeting with my wife? Explain why my own brother would betray me." Folake watched as the two brothers faced each other, years of trust and brotherhood hanging in the balance. Dr. Keod was younger by 5 years, had always looked up to his successful older brother, had been the one to introduce Folake to the family when she was working as a nurse at the hospital. "The meetings were about you, brother," Dr. Keod said urgently. "Folake was concerned about your health. She noticed symptoms, the chest pains you've been hiding, the shortness of breath, the way you clutch your left arm sometimes. She asked me to meet with her to discuss getting you to take a cardiac evaluation." The revelation hit the crowd like cold water. This was not the adultery scandal they had been expecting. Adunni's confident expression flickered. "Lies," she declared, but her voice lacked its earlier conviction. "More lies to cover up their affair." Chief Adebayo looked between his wife and his brother, the photograph still clutched in his hand. "Is this true, Folake? You were meeting with Keod about my health?" "Yes," Folake said, tears finally breaking free. "You have been having symptoms for months, but you refuse to see a doctor. You say you are too busy, that you don't trust hospitals, that real men don't need doctors. I was frightened that something would happen to you, so I asked Dr. Keod to help me convince you to get proper medical attention." Mrs. Bolarinwa, Chief Adebayo's sister, stepped forward. "Brother, she speaks the truth. I have also noticed your symptoms. We have all been worried, but you are too stubborn to listen." The wind was going out of Adunni's sails, but she was not ready to surrender. "Even if that is true, why the secrecy? Why the intimate dinners? Why not discuss this openly?" "Because you know your brother," Dr. Keod addressed Chief Adebayo directly. "If we had approached you together, you would have become suspicious and refused to listen. Folake thought that if I could convince you gradually, through casual conversation, you might be more open to the idea." Chief Adebayo was quiet for a long moment, processing this new information. The crowd held its breath, waiting to see which way his judgment would fall. "The photographs are real," he said finally. "But it seems the interpretation was wrong." Adunni's face contorted with fury and desperation. Her master plan was crumbling before her eyes. "You are all fools if you believe this convenient story. She has had months to prepare this explanation." "Enough." Chief Adebayo's patience had reached its limit. "Adunni, you have now attempted to destroy my family twice. First, you tried to murder my son. Now, you tried to destroy my marriage with lies and manipulation. You are a poison in the well, and I will not allow you to continue contaminating my life." He turned to the security guards. "Make sure she leaves these premises and does not return. If she comes near my family again, I will have her arrested for harassment." As the guards began to escort Adunni away, she turned back one final time. "You think you have won again, Folake, but I am not finished with you. I will find a way to make you pay for stealing my life." The crowd began to disperse as the excitement died down, but the damage had been done. The christening that was supposed to be a celebration of new life and blessings had been turned into a public spectacle that would be discussed in sitting rooms across Lagos for months to come. Father Michael approached the family hesitantly. Chief Adebayo, perhaps we should move inside to complete the blessing ceremony in private. But Chief Adebayo shook his head. The damage is done, Father. My family's reputation has been dragged through the mud once again. Perhaps it is better to end this day and try to heal from its wounds. As they prepared to leave the church, Dr. Keo placed his hand on his brother's shoulder. Brother, now that all of this is in the open, will you please let me examine you? Folake's concerns are real, and your health is more important than your pride. Chief Adebayo looked down at baby Ayomide, who had finally stopped crying and was gazing up at him with innocent eyes. Yes, he said quietly. For my son's sake, I will listen to the doctors. He needs his father to be healthy and strong. But as they walked toward their cars, all three adults knew that Adunni's threats were not empty words. The war was far from over, and the next battle might be even more devastating than this one. 6 months after the christening disaster, life in Chief Adebayo's Folake compound had settled into a cautious rhythm. The cardiac evaluation Dr. Keod had insisted upon revealed mild hypertension and early signs of arterial blockage, nothing immediately life-threatening, but serious enough to require medication and lifestyle changes. Folake had taken on the role of health guardian with the dedication of a night nurse, monitoring his diet, ensuring he took his medications, and insisting on evening walks around the neighborhood. Their marriage, tested by Adunni's schemes, had emerged stronger, built on the foundation of trust that had been publicly verified. Baby Ayomide, now 10 months old, was crawling energetically around the sitting room while Folake prepared breakfast. The morning routine was peaceful, Chief Adebayo reading his newspaper while sipping hibiscus tea instead of his usual strong coffee, the baby babbling contentedly, and Aya Agba humming old Yoruba songs while she cleaned. Mama Ayomide, Aya Agba called from the kitchen, "There is a woman at the gate asking for you. She says she has important information about Adunni." Folake's heart skipped. They had not heard from Adunni since the church incident, and the absence of drama had almost made her forget the promise of continued revenge. "What does she look like?" Folake asked, picking up Ayomide protectively. "Young woman, well-dressed, driving a small car. She says her name is Funmi and she used to work with Adunni." Chief Adebayo looked up from his newspaper. "Do not let her in. Whatever Adunni is planning now, I do not want it entering my compound." But curiosity was stronger than caution. "Let me at least hear what she has to say from the gate," Folake decided. "If Adunni is planning something dangerous, we need to be prepared." At the compound gate, Folake found a woman in her early 30s wearing a simple but clean dress and a worried expression. She introduced herself as Funmi Ogundipe, a former colleague from the textile company where Adunni had worked before her marriage. "Auntie Folake," Funmi began nervously, "I know you do not know me, but I felt I had to warn you. Adunni has been working as a house help for my neighbor in Ikeja, and she has been saying terrible things about you and your family." "What kind of things?" Folake asked, though part of her did not want to know. "She has been telling people that your baby is not Chief Adebayo's child. She claims she has evidence that you were having an affair with his brother, and that the timing of the pregnancy proves the child belongs to Dr. Keod." The words hit Folake like a physical blow. This was worse than photographs that could be explained. This was the kind of poisonous gossip that could destroy lives even when proven false. "That is a lie," Folake declared. "The timing is wrong, the facts are wrong, everything about her story is false." "I know, Auntie," Funmi said quickly. "That is why I came to warn you. But she is not just talking to random people. She has been approaching your husband's business associates, people from your church, even some of your family members. She is building a case, collecting any information that might support her story." Folake felt dizzy. The systematic nature of Adunni's campaign was terrifying. This was not the desperate lashing out of a scorned woman, this was calculated warfare designed to destroy everything Folake held dear. "Has she approached Chief Adebayo's business partners?" Folake asked. "Yes, Ma. Last week she went to Alhaji Mustafa's office. She told him that she had been silenced and pushed out of the family to hide the truth about the baby's paternity. She even brought documents, fake medical records, doctored photographs, testimonies from people claiming to have witnessed intimate moments between you and Dr. Keod. The scope of the plan was breathtaking in its malice. Adunni had clearly spent months crafting this elaborate deception, creating false evidence and recruiting allies in her war against Folake's reputation. "Why are you helping me?" Folake asked suddenly. "You were Adunni's friend. Why betray her plans?" Funmi's face hardened. "Because I know what kind of woman she really is. When we worked together, she was always jealous of anyone who got promoted, anyone who got married, anyone who had good fortune. She tried to sabotage my own engagement by telling my fiancé that I was already pregnant by another man. Fortunately, he knew me well enough not to believe her lies." "What should I do?" Folake asked, feeling overwhelmed by the enormity of the threat. "You need to act quickly," Funmi advised. "Get proper medical documentation of your pregnancy timeline. Gather witnesses who can testify to your faithfulness. Most importantly, warn your husband before someone else tells him these lies. A lie heard first often seems more believable than the truth heard later." As Funmi drove away, Folake stood at the gate feeling as if the ground was shifting beneath her feet. Just when she thought her family had found peace, Adunni had found a new way to attack from the shadows. She returned to the house to find Chief Adebayo finishing his breakfast, unaware that his world was about to be shaken again. "My husband," she began carefully, "we need to talk about Adunni." His face immediately darkened. "What has that woman done now?" "She is spreading lies about me, about our son, about our marriage. Lies that could destroy everything we have built together." Chief Adebayo set down his teacup with deliberate care. "What kind of lies?" Folake took a deep breath and told him everything: the false paternity claims, the fake documents, the systematic campaign to destroy their family's reputation. With each revelation, she watched her husband's expression grow more grave. When she finished, he was quiet for a long moment. Finally, he spoke. "Do you have proof of when Ayomide was conceived? Hospital records, medical documentation that would disprove a timeline?" "Yes," Folake said quickly. "All of my prenatal records are with Dr. Mrs. Adunni at the maternity clinic. The dates are very clear." "Then we will gather that proof. We will also speak with Dr. Keod about providing testimony regarding the true nature of your meetings. And then," his voice grew cold as ice, "we will put an end to Adunni's lies once and for all." But even as they made their plans, both knew that in the court of public opinion, defending against lies was always harder than spreading them. The damage might already be done. The law offices of Babatunde and Associates in Victoria Island buzzed with the quiet efficiency of serious legal work. Chief Adebayo sat across from senior advocate Babatunde Okafor, his weathered hands folded over a manila folder thick with evidence. "Chief," the lawyer said, adjusting his reading glasses, "you have a strong case for defamation. The medical records clearly establish the timeline of your wife's pregnancy, and the testimonies from Dr. Keod and the hospital staff support her version of events. But I must warn you, pursuing legal action against your former wife will make this matter very public." "It is already public," Chief Adebayo replied grimly. "Yesterday, one of my biggest clients called to express concern about rumors affecting my family. If I do not act now, these lies will destroy my business reputation along with my family's honor." The evidence spread across the mahogany table told a clear story. Dr. Keod had provided detailed medical testimony about the timing of his consultations with Folake, all focused on Chief Adebayo's health concerns. The maternity clinic records showed precise dates that made Adunni's paternity claims mathematically impossible. Most damaging to Adunni's case were the testimonies from 3 people she had approached, all documenting her attempts to spread false information. "There is something else," the lawyer continued. "My investigators discovered that Mrs. Adunni has been using forged documents. The medical records she has been showing people contain falsified dates and signatures. This moves her actions from defamation into the realm of criminal fraud. Chief Adibeo leaned back in his leather chair. After weeks of watching his wife suffer under the weight of public suspicion, after seeing how the stress was affecting her ability to care for baby Ayomide, he had reached his breaking point. File both cases, he decided. The civil defamation suit and the criminal fraud charges. Adunni has chosen war, now she will face the consequences. Meanwhile, across Lagos in a cramped one-bedroom apartment in Ajij, Adunni was meeting with Mama Sikarat, an elderly woman known throughout the neighborhood for her expertise in spiritual warfare. The small room reeked of incense and bitter herbs, candles flickering in every corner casting dancing shadows on the walls. You say this woman has stolen your husband and your rightful place? Mama Sikarat asked, her voice like dried leaves rustling. More than stolen, Adunni replied, her eyes burning with intensity. She has destroyed my entire life. I gave that man 8 years of faithful service, and she turned him against me with lies and manipulation. The old woman studied Adunni's face carefully. What you are asking for is not simple medicine for headache or stomach trouble. You want to reach into the spiritual realm and pull down someone who appears to be protected. I don't care what it costs, Adunni said desperately. I have sold my gold jewelry, my clothes, everything I own. I just want her to suffer the way I have suffered. Mama Sikarat stood and moved to a wooden chest in the corner of the room. From it, she withdrew several small pouches and a collection of items that made Adunni's skin crawl, animal bones, dried herbs that looked like miniature hands, and a mirror wrapped in black cloth. There is a way, the old woman said slowly, but it requires a sacrifice that goes beyond money. You must be willing to bind your own destiny to this revenge. If you succeed in destroying her, you will also destroy any chance of your own happiness in this life. Adunni did not hesitate. I accept. My happiness died the day she took my place. Now I live only for revenge. As Mama Sikarat began her preparations, mixing herbs and chanting in an ancient dialect, Adunni felt a cold satisfaction settle in her chest. Soon, Folake would understand what it meant to lose everything. Back in Suralere, Folake was experiencing the first signs that something was wrong. It started with small things, Ayomide crying inconsolably at night, refusing to nurse, running mysterious fevers that would spike and disappear without explanation. The baby who had been thriving just weeks ago was now listless and sickly. Something is not natural about this illness, Aya Agba observed as she watched Folake pace the sitting room with the feverish child. The boy was healthy, then suddenly he becomes sick with symptoms that make no sense. Dr. Keod had examined his nephew twice, running every test he could think of, but the results showed nothing definitive. It could be a virus, he explained to the worried parents, but the pattern is unusual. The fever comes and goes without following any known medical pattern. Could someone be doing something to him? Folake asked the question that had been haunting her thoughts. Dr. Keod, a man of science, hesitated to acknowledge such possibilities. I cannot find any evidence of poisoning or harmful substances. But, he paused, choosing his words carefully, there are things that medical science cannot always explain. That evening, as Folake sat beside Ayomide's cot watching his labored breathing, she made a decision that would have shocked her younger self. She sent word to Pastor Adibeo at their church, asking him to come and pray over the child. She also quietly asked Aya Agba to find someone who understood the older ways, someone who could determine if spiritual forces were at work. My daughter, Aya Agba said gently, there is a woman in Mushin, Mama Ibarank, who has gift for seeing such things. She helped my own family when we faced similar troubles years ago. As if responding to their conversation, baby Ayomide let out a cry unlike anything Folake had ever heard, not the normal cry of hunger or discomfort, but something that sounded almost like pain mixed with fear. Call her, Folake said, all her modern education and Christian beliefs momentarily set aside in the face of a mother's desperation. Call Mama Ibrahim tonight. The war between the co-wives was escalating beyond the physical realm. An innocent baby Ayomide had become the battlefield. In a few hours, spiritual forces that had been set in motion would collide, and only one side could emerge victorious. Chief Adebayo, unaware of the supernatural dimensions of the conflict, continued preparing his legal assault against Adunni, not knowing that she had already launched her own attack using weapons that no court of law could address. Mama Ibrahim arrived at Chief Adebayo's compound just as the morning call to prayer echoed from the nearby mosque. She was a small, elderly woman with knowing eyes and hands that seemed to hold centuries of wisdom. Despite her unassuming appearance, there was an authority in her presence that made even skeptical Chief Adebayo treat her with respect. "The child has been touched by something unnatural," she announced after spending only moments in the nursery with baby Ayomide. "Someone has sent spiritual arrows aimed at this family, but the child is bearing the burden because innocent blood calls out most loudly to the realm of spirits." Folake's heart pounded as her worst fears were confirmed. "Can you help him? Can you break whatever has been done?" Mama Ibrahim examined the baby's tiny hands and feet, muttering prayers in Yoruba while she walked. "The person who did this has gone to someone powerful, someone who deals in the darkest medicines. But every weapon has a defense, every curse has a remedy, if we are willing to pay the price." "What price?" Chief Adebayo asked, though his business mind was already calculating cost. "Not money," Mama Ibrahim replied. "Truth. Complete honesty about everything that has happened in this family. The spirits cannot help those who hide secrets from each other." For the next hour, Folake and Chief Adebayo laid bare every detail of their marriage, their conflicts with Adunni, and the escalating war that had consumed their lives. The old woman listened without judgment, occasionally asking probing questions that cut to the heart of matters they had tried to avoid discussing even with each other. "There is guilt in this house," Mama Ibrahim observed. "Not the guilt of adultery or betrayal, but the guilt of pride and perhaps hardness of heart." She turned to Chief Adebayo. "You sent away your first wife without trying to understand the depth of her pain. You were right to protect your child, but did you ever consider that barrenness can drive a woman to temporary madness?" Chief Adebayo shifted uncomfortably. "She tried to poison my son. There was no excuse for that." "No excuse, but perhaps explanation. And you," she addressed Folake, "you were so focused on winning your husband's favor that you did not see how your very presence was destroying another woman's soul." Folake felt tears burn in her eyes. "I never tried to push her out. I only wanted to be loved. Yet you felt triumph when she was sent away. You felt victory in her defeat. These feelings have given power to her revenge." Baby Ayomide whimpered weakly in his cot, and Mama Ibrahim placed her weathered hands gently on his forehead. "The child pays for the sins of the adults. But there is hope. The one who sent this curse made a mistake, she bound her own fate to its success. If we can break what she has done, the spiritual backlash will return to her threefold." "What must we do?" Folake asked urgently. Mama Ibrahim reached into her leather bag and withdrew several items: white chalk, honey, palm wine, and a small brass bell. "First, we must cleanse this house of all negative spiritual residue. Then, we must confront the source directly." "Confront Adunni?" Chief Adebayo asked. "Not physically. Spiritually. We must call her to account before the ancestors and the forces she has invoked. But this is dangerous, if our hearts are not pure. If we approach this with thoughts of revenge rather than justice, the curse could rebound on us instead." As Mama Ibrahim began her cleansing ritual, moving through each room of the house with her chalk and prayers, Folake felt a strange mixture of hope and terror. She was venturing into spiritual territory that her Christian upbringing had taught her to fear, but her baby's life hung in the balance. Meanwhile, in Ajij, Adunni was experiencing the first signs that her spiritual warfare was beginning to backfire. She had woken up with severe stomach cramps that no medicine could relieve, and by midday, she was vomiting blood. Mama Sikarat, the woman who had helped her craft the curse, was nowhere to be found. Her apartment was empty, as if she had vanished into thin air. The pain in Adunni's belly felt like claws tearing at her insides, and with each wave of agony came flashes of memory, baby Ayomide's innocent face, the trust in Chief Adebayo's eyes during their early years of marriage, the kindness Folake had shown her before jealousy poisoned her heart. "What have I done?" she whispered to the empty room, understanding for the first time that the forces she had unleashed might be beyond her control. Back in Suralere, as Mama Ibrahim completed her purification of the house, baby Ayomide's fever began to break for the first time in days. His breathing became easier, and he even managed to take some milk from his bottle. "The cleansing is working," Mama Ibrahim announced, "but the source of the curse must still be confronted. Tonight, when the moon is full, we will call Adunni to spiritual account. But remember, we go not for revenge, but for justice and protection." The moment our hearts turn toward hatred, we become no better than she is. As night fell over Lagos, two women prepared for a spiritual battle that would determine not only the fate of baby Ayomide, but the destiny of everyone involved in this tragic family drama. The ancestors were watching, and before sunrise, the truth about guilt, innocence, and the price of revenge would be revealed. The full moon hung over Lagos like a silver coin as Mama Ibrahim prepared for the spiritual confrontation that would determine baby Ayomide's fate. She had transformed the sitting room of Chief Adebayo's house into a sacred space, with white chalk circles drawn on the floor, candles burning at each cardinal direction, and offerings of honey, palm wine, and kola nuts arranged on a white cloth. "Are you certain you want to witness this?" Mama Ibrahim asked Chief Adebayo, who sat holding his son while Folake knelt beside the chalk circle. "What you are about to see may challenge everything you believe about the visible and invisible world." Chief Adebayo, a man who had built his fortune on concrete and steel, on contracts and bank statements, nodded grimly. "I have watched my son nearly die from forces I cannot understand. If this will save him, I will face whatever comes." Mama Ibrahim began to chant in ancient Yoruba, her voice rising and falling like ocean waves. She poured libations of palm wine at each corner of the circle and called upon the ancestors to bear witness to the spiritual crimes that had been committed. "Adunni Kofowala Adelik," she called out, using the full name she had somehow learned, "I summon you before the court of spirits. Come and answer for what you have done to this innocent child." The temperature in the room dropped suddenly, and the candles flickered as if touched by an unfelt wind. Baby Ayomide, who had been quiet in his father's arms, began to stir and make soft sounds, not cries of distress, but almost as if he was responding to voices only he could hear. Then, impossibly, they heard Adunni's voice in the room, not physically present, but clear as if she was standing among them. "I am here," the voice said, filled with pain and defiance. "I answer your summons." Mama Ibrahim's eyes rolled back until only the whites showed, and when she spoke again, her voice carried the authority of ages. "Adunni, child of Kofowala, you have sent spiritual arrows against an innocent baby. You have invoked forces of darkness to satisfy your personal revenge. Do you acknowledge these acts?" The disembodied voice of Adunni seemed to come from everywhere and nowhere at once. "I acknowledge them. This woman destroyed my life, took my husband, turned him against me. I wanted her to feel the pain I have felt. And what of the innocent child? What was his crime against you?" For a long moment, there was silence. Then, in a voice broken with tears, he was guilty of being born to the wrong mother. Of being the son I could never give my husband. Of being loved when I was rejected. Folake felt tears streaming down her face as she heard the raw pain in her former co-wife's voice. Despite everything Adunni had done, the anguish was heartbreaking. "Folake Adebayo, wife and mother," Mama Ibrahim continued, still speaking with the voice of spiritual authority, "you also bear responsibility in this matter. Though you did not intend harm, your joy in your rival's downfall, your satisfaction in her banishment, gave power to her curse. Do you acknowledge this?" Folake's voice trembled as she replied, "Yes, I acknowledge it. I was glad when she was sent away. I felt victorious in her defeat. I see now that my hardness of heart contributed to her desperation. And you, Adebayo Ayomide Adikono, the spiritual voice addressed Chief Adebayo, you cast out a woman who had served your family for 8 years without offering any path to redemption. You let pride and anger rule your judgment. Your harshness pushed her to seek revenge through dark means. Chief Adebayo's voice was hoarse with emotion. I acknowledge my part. I was so focused on protecting my son that I forgot Adunni was also part of my family. I should have found a way to help her instead of simply casting her out. The presence in the room seemed to pulse with power as all 3 adults accepted responsibility for their roles in the tragedy. Baby Ayomide had stopped making sounds and lay peacefully in his father's arms, as if the spiritual tension that had been tormenting him was finally being released. Now, Mama Ibrahim announced, the ancestors will pronounce judgment. Adunni, your pain was real, but your response brought innocent suffering. The curse you sent must be broken, and the spiritual debt must be paid. But because you now show genuine remorse, and because those you targeted have acknowledged their own failings, mercy will be mixed with justice. Suddenly, Adunni's physical form materialized in the center of the chalk circle, not solid, but visible like a reflection in disturbed water. She looked terrible, aged by months of hatred and spiritual backlash, her body visibly racked with pain. The curse is breaking, Mama Ibrahim announced, but the spiritual forces you invoked must be satisfied. You must choose, Adunni, either the child continues to bear the burden of your revenge, or you take it fully upon yourself. Without hesitation, Adunni spoke, I choose myself. Let the child go free. I will bear whatever punishment comes. The moment she spoke these words, a visible weight seemed to lift from baby Ayomide. His color improved instantly, his breathing became strong and steady, and he even smiled, the first genuine smile his parents had seen in weeks. But Adunni's spirit form convulsed with pain as the full force of her own curse returned to her. I accept this, she gasped. But know this, my hatred dies with this curse. I forgive you, Folake, for I see now that we were all prisoners of our own pride and pain. As dawn broke over Lagos, Adunni's spirit form faded away, and the supernatural presence left the room. Baby Ayomide was completely healthy, laughing and reaching for his parents with renewed energy. Mama Ibrahim, exhausted from channeling such powerful forces, accepted the generous payment Chief Adebayo offered and prepared to leave. What will happen to Adunni now? Folake asked. That depends on her choices going forward, the old woman replied. The curse is broken, but spiritual debts must still be paid. She has chosen the path of suffering, but also the path that might lead to redemption. Whether she finds peace or destruction now depends on whether she can learn to forgive herself. As the spiritual cleanser departed, the family was left to contemplate the night's revelations and the price that had been paid for their conflicts. The war between the co-wives was finally over, but the lessons learned would echo through their lives forever. 3 days after the spiritual confrontation, Adunni's landlord in Ajij found her collapsed in her small apartment, burning with fever and delirious with pain. The hospital in Ikeja where she was rushed could find no medical explanation for her condition. Her organs were shutting down one by one, as if her life force was simply draining away. Dr. Keod, despite everything that had happened, felt duty-bound to examine his former sister-in-law when her condition was brought to his attention. What he found defied medical explanation, a patient whose body was failing without any identifiable disease, as if she was being consumed from within by invisible forces. There is nothing conventional medicine can do, he told her brother Connor privately. Whatever is happening to her exists beyond the realm of physical healing. News of Adunni's mysterious illness spread quickly through the network of family and friends who had witnessed the escalating drama between the co-wives. Some whispered that she was paying the price for the evil she had attempted. Others, more sympathetic, saw a woman finally broken by months of hatred and spiritual warfare. In Suralere, Folake heard the news with a complex mixture of emotions. Baby Ayomide was thriving, laughing, playing, developing exactly as a healthy 10-month-old should. The mysterious illness that had nearly claimed his life had vanished completely, as if it had never existed. But the cost of that healing weighed heavily on her conscience. "She is dying because she saved our son," Folake told Chief Adebayo as they watched Ayomide crawl happily across the sitting room floor. "Whatever anger I held toward her, I never wanted this." Chief Adebayo, who had been wrestling with his own guilt since the spiritual confrontation, made a decision that surprised even himself. "We are going to visit her." "What?" Folake stared at her husband in shock. "After everything she has done to us?" "Because of everything that has happened to all of us," Chief Adebayo corrected. "Mama Ibarank was right, we all played a part in creating this tragedy. If Adunni is dying because she chose to save our son, then we owe her the dignity of acknowledgement." The drive to the teaching hospital in Ikeja was tense and quiet. Folake held baby Ayomide close, still protective after the recent spiritual attack, while Chief Adebayo navigated Lagos traffic with unusual patience. Both were dreading the confrontation ahead, yet knew it was necessary for their own peace of mind. They found Adunni in a public ward, sharing space with 5 other patients, her once proud form reduced to skin and bones beneath a thin hospital blanket. Her brother Connor sat beside her bed, looking exhausted from days of watching his sister waste away from inexplicable causes. When Adunni saw them approaching, her eyes filled with tears, not of anger or bitterness, but something that looked remarkably like relief. "You came," she whispered, her voice barely audible above the sounds of the busy ward. Chief Adebayo pulled up a plastic chair beside her bed, while Folake remained standing, holding Ayomide. The baby, seeing Adunni's condition, did not cry or fuss but regarded her with the serious gaze that children sometimes have when they sense important moments. "How are you feeling?" Chief Adebayo asked, the former politeness of their conversation highlighting the strange territory they all found themselves in. "I am dying," Adunni said simply. "The spiritual debt is being collected from my body, day by day, hour by hour. But I am at peace with it. For the first time in months, I am at peace." Folake found her voice. "You saved our son's life. When given the choice, you took the curse upon yourself to free him. Why?" Adunni's eyes moved to baby Ayomide, who was reaching toward her with tiny hands. "Because I finally remembered who I used to be, before jealousy ate my heart like acid. I used to be a woman who would protect children, not harm them. In that moment when the spirits demanded a choice, I found myself again. Is there nothing that can be done?" Folake asked. "No way to break the spiritual debt." Adunni smiled weakly. "The debt can only be paid by genuine repentance and the forgiveness of those I wronged. I have done the repenting. The forgiveness, that is not mine to give to myself." The weight of her words hung in the air. Chief Adebayo and Folake exchanged glances, understanding what was being asked of them. "Adunni," Chief Adebayo said formally, "I forgive you for the harm you tried to bring to my family. I also ask your forgiveness for my harshness in casting you out without offering you any path to redemption. And I," Folake added, her voice stronger than she expected, "forgive you for the pain you caused us. I also ask your forgiveness for the hardness of my heart and the joy I felt in your downfall." As the words of mutual forgiveness were spoken, something miraculous happened. Color began to return to Adunni's cheeks, and her breathing, which had been shallow and labored, deepened and strengthened. Baby Ayomide, as if sensing the spiritual shift in the room, reached out toward Adunni with both hands, making the cooing sounds that babies use to express joy. "May I hold him?" Adunni asked quietly. "Just for a moment." Folake hesitated only briefly before placing her son gently in Adunni's arms. The woman who had once tried to poison this child now cradled him with infinite tenderness, tears streaming down her face. "Ayomide," she whispered to the baby, "you are blessed among children. Your very existence taught me that love is stronger than hatred, forgiveness more powerful than revenge. Grow up to be better than all of us." As she handed the baby back to Folake, Adunni's improvement became even more visible. The monitors attached to her began showing stronger vital signs, and she was able to sit up slightly in bed. "The spiritual debt is lifting," she said in wonder. "Forgiveness really is the most powerful medicine." Dr. Keod, making his evening rounds, stopped in amazement at Adunni's bedside. The woman who had been at death's door that morning was sitting up, alert, and showing none of the mysterious symptoms that had been consuming her. "This is medically impossible," he muttered, checking her charts against her appearance. "Yesterday you were in organ failure. Today you look like you're recovering from a mild illness." Adunni smiled at her former brother-in-law. "Some healings happen in the spirit before they manifest in the body, doctor. Today I learned the difference between justice and revenge, between consequences and cruelty." As Chief Adebayo and Folake prepared to leave the hospital, they knew they had witnessed something extraordinary. The war that had consumed their family for months had ended not with victory and defeat, but with mutual forgiveness and unexpected healing. 1 year later, the compound in Suralere buzzed with preparations for baby Ayomide's first birthday celebration. The sitting room was decorated with colorful balloons and streamers, and Aya Agba had been cooking all morning, filling the house with the aroma of jollof rice, fried plantains, and pepper soup. Folake, now visibly pregnant with her second child, moved carefully around the house, directing the final preparations. Chief Adebayo, his health much improved thanks to regular medical care and reduced stress, carried 18-month-old Ayomide, who had grown into a robust, laughing toddler with an infectious smile. "Mama, are you sure she will come?" Folake asked Aya Agba for the third time that morning. "She promised she would be here," the older woman replied patiently. "Some promises are too important to break." The guests began arriving by midday: family members, business associates, church friends, and neighbors who had witnessed various chapters of the family's dramatic saga. The mood was festive, but there was an underlying tension as everyone wondered if the day's most anticipated guest would actually appear. At exactly 2 p.m., a modest Toyota Corolla pulled up to the compound gate. From it emerged Adunni, looking healthier than she had in over a year, wearing a simple but elegant blue Ankara dress and carrying a beautifully wrapped gift. The compound fell quiet as she walked through the gate, her head held high but her demeanor humble. She had spent the past year working as a supervisor at a textile factory in Ogun State, slowly rebuilding her life and her reputation. The spiritual healing that had begun in the hospital had continued as she learned to live without bitterness and revenge. Chief Adebayo was the first to approach her, extending his hand in greeting. "Adunni, thank you for coming. Your presence here means a great deal to our family." "Thank you for inviting me," she replied simply. "I know many people question whether I should be here, but some circles must be closed properly." Folake appeared beside her husband, carrying Ayomide, who immediately recognized Adunni and reached toward her with delighted babbling. "Look how he has grown," Adunni marveled, accepting the child into her arms with the easy familiarity of an aunt. "He is going to be tall like his father." The sight of the woman who had once tried to poison the child now cuddling him lovingly was not lost on the gathered guests. Whispered conversation started immediately, but the tone was more amazed than scandalized. "Ayomide," Adunni said to the toddler, "I brought you something special for your birthday." She handed him the wrapped gift, which he immediately began trying to eat with the dedication that only a 1-year-old could muster. "Let me help him," Folake laughed, unwrapping the present to reveal a beautifully carved wooden toy truck, obviously handmade with great care and attention to detail. "I made it myself," Adunni explained. "I have been learning woodworking in my spare time. It helps keep my hands busy and my mind peaceful." Pastor Adebayo from their church approached the group, his face beaming with the satisfaction of witnessing what he considered a miracle of reconciliation. "Sister Adunni, it is wonderful to see you looking so well. Your testimony of forgiveness and redemption has blessed many people in our congregation." Indeed, Adunni's story had become something of a legend in Lagos Christian circles, the jealous co-wife who had found redemption through spiritual confrontation and mutual forgiveness. She had been invited to speak at several churches about the destructive power of jealousy and the healing power of forgiveness. As the party continued, Adunni found herself in easy conversation with relatives and friends, her natural warmth and charm, qualities that had been buried under months of bitterness, once again on display. Several guests remarked to each other that this was the Adunni they remembered from the early years of her marriage, before jealousy had poisoned her heart. "There is someone I want you to meet," Chief Adibeo said, approaching Adunni with a distinguished-looking man in his 40s. "This is Engineer Babatunde Ogundimu, my friend from the Construction Association." "Babatunde, this is Adunni, my former wife." The introduction was awkward, but Babatunde's smile was warm and genuine. "I have heard your story, Sister Adunni. Your journey from darkness to light has been truly inspiring." As the two began to converse, Folake noticed the easy way they talked together, the respectful interest in Babatunde's eyes, and the genuine smile on Adunni's face, the first time she had seen her former co-wife look truly happy in years. "Do you think she will find love again?" Folake asked her husband quietly. "I hope so," Chief Adibeo replied. "Everyone deserves a second chance at happiness, especially those who have learned from their mistakes." As evening approached and guests began to leave, Adunni lingered, helping to clean up despite Folake's protest. The two women found themselves alone in the kitchen, washing dishes side by side in a companionable silence that would have been impossible a year ago. "Folake," Adunni said finally, "I need to say something to you." "What is it?" "I am truly happy for you. Your pregnancy, your family's peace, Ayomide's health and happiness. I know it took me a long time to reach this point, but I can say now without any bitterness in my heart, I am glad you found the love I could not appreciate when I had it." Folake felt tears welling in her eyes. "And I am glad you found yourself again. The woman you are today, this is who you were meant to be all along." As Adunni prepared to leave, she knelt down to say goodbye to little Ayomide, who was playing on the floor with his new wooden truck. "Remember me as your auntie Adunni who learned to love you," she whispered to the child. "And always remember, forgiveness is the greatest gift you can give to yourself and others." Driving back to her small but comfortable apartment in Abeokuta, Adunni reflected on the long journey that had brought her to this place of peace. The jealous co-wife who had tried to destroy her rival's child was gone, replaced by a woman who understood that true happiness could never be stolen from others, it could only be built within oneself. Behind her, in the Sorale compound, Chief Adibeo and Folake tucked their son into his cot and settled down for the evening, their hearts full of gratitude for the healing that had transformed their family. The war between the co-wives was truly over, ended not by victory and defeat, but by the more powerful forces of forgiveness, redemption, and the recognition that love shared is love multiplied, never diminished. As the Yoruba proverb says, "Ekigon ijiti ekeole sokeo," we do not climb a tree we cannot climb down from. All three adults had learned this lesson the hard way, but in learning it, they had found their way back to solid ground and the possibility of genuine happiness. And so ends the tale of the jealous co-wife who tried to destroy her rival's child, but instead found her own redemption through forgiveness. What lessons will you take from this powerful story of revenge, redemption, and the healing power of forgiveness? Share this story with someone who needs to hear about the triumph of love over hatred, and don't forget to subscribe to K-Smart's Mythic Tales for more inspiring African stories that touch the heart and heal the soul.